Is it a good shot? Are we getting it?
Yeah, it looks good as far as it goes. Maybe a little bit. Tilt it up a little bit. Yeah, slap it a bit more back.
When he's ready, our next speaker is Paul Miller.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paul Miller. I'm a senior communications major here at the university. And if I could draw your attention to my visual on screen, which I need to enlarge and make full size so that no one is having to strain their eyes. Better? Awesome. All right. So what you're looking at is a comprehensive graph of marriage and divorce rates here in the United States, ranging from 1869 all the way through 2012. Now, the reason why this excites me is because I'm really interested in how social, economic, and cultural events and trends correlate and may or may not have a causal relationship, which is also why you might find it interesting on a macro level scale, if that's the type of thing that you're interested in, like how these trends relate, or on a micro level scale, considering the fact that, let's see, 86% of the women in here will be married by age 40 and 81% of the men. Like, marriage and divorce rates might be something worth looking into to find out, specifically divorce, like what is causing this, because that may or may not be relevant to you, and you may want to know ways to avoid that if possible. So I'd like to talk about, this was the one that I revised, just kind of talk about some of the things that it did well and some of the things that it did poorly. I like the space of time that it covered. You know, it's 143 separate data points. It's a large sample size. It's really useful for examining trends. I also like the fact that they highlighted some of the extremes on the graph. So if you look at the marriage one, you see at the highest point, they've got end of World War II. The very lowest point, you've got Great Depression. Now, I omitted those on mine, and the reason was because while that may or may not be useful for looking at like the causal or correlation between points, I think it's context specific, maybe like a historical class or a culture class. So I left those out just so that the data could be observed in a more objective manner. So this was my revision. I was able to find Gestalt principles related to all 5 things that I changed, but 3 of them, the first 3, so the continuation, connection, and, or I'm sorry, the first 2, the continuation under clutter and the connection under grid lines. I'm not going to talk about those because the impact they had on my visual was negligible at best. So clutter though, improvements, that would be how in the original graph you had every single data point had a little circle, entirely unnecessary. That is overload. We do not need that in order to track how the data is progressing. Another aspect of clutter was the marriage and divorce labels that you see in the title of my revision. Those were in the original graph listed both up in the title, and then they were listed on each respective graph, so here and here respectively. That's unnecessary. And that goes into what I did with the labels to make it easier to interpret the information that you were looking at. So with the labels of marriage and divorce, I only had them in one place to keep them from being redundant up there in the title. I changed their colors. Originally, they were blue and red. I thought that that red, like even though the divorce line was red in the original one, now even though divorce, like historically speaking, has a lot of negative connotations, I thought that that was a kind of priming color. So instead, I chose to use 2 colors that were more neutral and just a different shade of the same color, in this case, blue. And also so that I didn't have to list marriage and divorce here and here again, I enlarged the font in the title and then colored it to correspond to which graph that you were looking at. Um, so today we've talked a little bit about how this may or may not be interesting to you on like a sociological level, why it may or may not be useful to you on a personal level, and also kind of gone over what were some of the shortcomings in the original and how it needed improvement. So I appreciate your all's time and attention. Thank you very much.
Paul, before you take that down, can you tell me what those numbers mean in the x-axis going up and down?
Going up and down,
Uh-huh.
this was how they measured it per 1,000 population. So like if you look at the divorce rate here, where that's like a 0%.
Okay, I see.
So that would have been back in 1869, that would have been basically like 1% per 1,000 population. And then all the way here, we're looking at closer to, so like 0.5, which is 50%.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then what do the numbers at the bottom, are they years?
They are just a sequential numeric. That was something, I actually spent about 45 minutes to an hour in the library talking with multiple librarians, attempting to get the years similar to this one listed across, and none of them were able to help me. So I left them up there to just kind of demonstrate again how comprehensive the data was and how much this was spanning. Each one of these represents a year, or in this case, a 3-year section, so 1, 4, 7, 10,
Okay.
all the way up to 142 data points.
Okay, so your preference would have been to put the years in.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to dish you or anything, but
Sure.
in the, about a week ago, when I was going over this, I talked about how to do that.
Mhm.
And it's in one of the handouts on Blackboard,
Okay.
how to get those years down there, because I had a problem with that too, and it took me a while to figure it out. So I didn't want you to have to go through that, so I put the directions.
Yeah, I'll go through and look again. I spent
Okay.
time looking through the handouts trying to find which specific one, so that may just be, me not looking, I don't know, looking in the wrong place.
Okay, I just want you to know it's there somewhere if you have to do that again.
Okay, that'd be
Okay.
helpful.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
You want me to exit off, Professor?
No, I have to think of a question.
Okay.
I'll exit off.